Mayor, at 6:30, may I begin? Mayor, at 6:30, may I begin?
Zoe, I can hardly hear you.
Are you able to hear me now, Mayor?
A little better.
Mayor, at 6:30.
Yes.
Mayor, I have a few preliminary matters. This is Zoe Burgess, your city clerk. This meeting is being held with a quorum of City of Westlake Council, physically in attendance.
We have an echo going here.
Because you're hearing her from there as well.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
This meeting is being held with a quorum of City of Westlake Council, physically in attendance at the Westlake Council Chambers, 4005 Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. Councilman Patrick Paul, Vice Mayor John Paul O'Connor, Mayor Roger Manning, Councilwoman Katrina Long Robinson, Councilwoman Kara Crump is not in attendance. City Manager Kenneth Castle, Interim City Attorney Mike Cerullo of Gorn, Chair off duty in Ezrall, PA, and Planning and Zoning Director Nilsa Zacharias are present and physically in attendance. City Clerk Zoe Burgess is present as well. Public comments may be accepted prior to the meeting utilizing the electronic comment card available on the city's website. Public comments are also permitted at the appropriate time during the meeting. The mayor will call for such during public comment, and you may participate at this time utilizing the system's virtual hand feature and waiting to be acknowledged if you wish to comment. Please note this meeting is being recorded, both voice and video, and to remember your mic may be live. I will mute any microphones that carry any feedback or interruptions. If you are a caller that has been muted, you may unmute yourself by pressing *6. Any person in the virtual meeting causing a disruption or being inappropriate will be removed from the meeting. If I may also remind those physically in attendance, please utilize microphones so that the virtual audience and a clear recording of the meeting is produced. Thank you, Mayor Manning.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the City Council Workshop Meeting Monday, April 26, 2021 at 6:32 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Katrina Long Robinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Kara Crump is absent. Councilman Patrick Paul.
Here.
Vice Mayor John Paul O'Connor.
Present.
Mayor Roger Manning.
Present.
Mayor, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on our agenda this evening, we have started out with a comparison analysis of parks and city halls in Palm Beach County, submitted by Nilsa.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. For the record, Nilsa Zacharias, Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Westlake. This workshop will focus on parks and city halls, and specifically will present information for the City of Westlake and other municipalities from Palm Beach County. And as you can, so part of your package, and I want to talk a little bit here. Part of your package, you have received a number of tables. These tables, the table number 1 is a summary in terms of ownership, land ownership, and includes 39 municipalities in Palm Beach County. Table 2 includes specific parks information, and table 3 includes city halls. For the purpose of the PowerPoint, obviously these tables were expanded at so many slides because on the PowerPoint format, everything increased. So we have a large number of slides, and I am not planning to show every single slide. I have selected key slides that shows important information. However, this is a workshop for the city council. If you want me to stop in any slide, please ask me so because they are all part of the PowerPoint. And also, as we go through the slides, please feel free to ask questions. This is a workshop format, it's for discussion. So, first, we are starting with the Table 1 summary that includes the 39 municipalities, and they are organized based on population size from the smallest to largest. So this is a map showing all the municipalities in Palm Beach County. And we will start with our city, City of Westlake. If you see on the first column, we put the population, and we are showing the population at build out, which is year 2038, and it was estimated at 16,091 people. And then this table overall shows land ownership in terms of land owned by municipality, land owned by the district, and also land owned by the county. For this specific slide also, we wanted to show where are we in terms of population. So we estimated based on the number of certificate of occupancies or COs as March 31st. So we have an estimated 1,945 residents based on the certificates of occupancy. Okay, the second column shows the total city of acres. Then we are looking at how much park, how much parkland, city hall, community center, water park, conservation, or others. So the city at this point does not own acreage of land at this point. So once we look at it, the land owned by a district, we can look there that is 50 acres is for the community park to be located in part C4. And then also we'll have the fitness park, 39 acres. And then later on the presentation, if you have seen, there are specific slides that will describe all the parks that are located now in Westlake. So also on land owned by the county, we are showing only 4.4 acres, which is the fire station. So the county does not own a parkland or in the city of Westlake.
There are two asterisks by Sid land. Sid owns land also? Any land here?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
all the lakes are SID property.
okay. At the point of turnover, all that land will then become city land, is that correct?
Correct. If you dissolve, at turnover, if you dissolve SID altogether, otherwise you turn SID into a dependent district, similar to what Wellington does.
Right.
It would remain in SID, but it becomes a dependent district with the city, so it does not have its own governing board. The city council would be the governing board, but SID, as far as being able to operate, would be basically an extension of the city at that point in time.
On the projection of residents at this point, was it originally dependent on 3.2 per acre per residents, or how was that determined?
The person per household, it was determined during the comprehensive plan, and we determined at 2.65. Yes, because we are a mix, we are suburban and urban, so it came out to that number, 2.65.
Do you think that's where it really is right now? There's a lot of families here. I think that there's more. I would venture to assume it's more than that.
That's the reason every 7 years we will look at it, our comprehensive plan, which actually started every 6 years, but we can reassess those parameters, how we calculated our population build out.
Also, the last census, we have a census tract, so the census will give us an initial indication as a snapshot of time at that point in time to see what the ratio of homes to population was. So that'll be another factor in the data that we utilize to come up with the right number.
I do have a question going back to Roger when he mentioned SID. I know we determined that SID would have, if by chance the council decided to turn parks over to the city, would SID still have long-term use of maintenance of the parks, or how would that work?
But depend on how they,
How
depend on
they
how it
counsel.
worked out in the end. One of the things, what I have observed in other cities, they would love to have a SID as part of their toolbox. So I would caution this council or any future council to keep SID as long as you can and utilize it to your benefit and effectiveness, because it allows you to be a lot more flexible in providing the services that sometimes you get bogged down in if it was strictly provided by the city.
Like I said, we have more slides, more specific to Westlake and parks coming through. So as I mentioned before, this table number 1 includes the 39 municipalities, and they were organized based on the smaller to largest in terms of population. So these are all the tables. For example, I will stop on this. North Palm Beach has 13,127 population, and Lantana have 12,581. Those are interesting numbers in terms of comparison when we are at build out, which is our number, estimated number is 16,000. Obviously, then we have the larger municipalities, Palm Beach Gardens, Wellington, Jupiter, and so on.
Can you go back just
Yes,
the slide with Lantana?
okay.
I just wanted to look at the
Yes.
acreage again there. Okay, thank you.
And this is a summary in terms of table 1 and land ownership. We encountered that 21% of the municipalities own less than 1% of their land. And between them, Briny Breezes, Harbor Hill, Hypolog, Solok, Sahachi Grove, Apoki, and Bell Glade. So obviously the highest percentage owned by a municipality is West Palm Beach. Yes. And then also 41% of the municipalities have within their boundaries land owned by Palm Beach County. Okay, table 2, parks. In order to compare parks, we selected 10 municipalities, and we selected a number of them based on the smaller population to the largest population, so you will have a range of different type of facilities and ownership. So one of the first things that we wanted to present is with regard to the American with Disability Act accessible parks. We heard the council wanted to learn more about it, so we prepared a number of slides. First of all, it's very important that all the parks should have one of each type, at least one of each type of play component that must be on an accessible route. And also, there are some specific requirements in terms of ground level requirements based on elevated play components. So a number of those elevated play components needs to be accessible also. So, and that then also the regulations offer a percentage. And it says very clearly, at least 50% of the elevated play components must be on an accessible route. So I want to show more. The ADA Accessible Parks also has guidelines, and the guidelines are very important, and they basically describe how to actually have an accessible park. So there are a number of steps that the designer needs to follow. And now I want to show some of the photos. These are photos from the Wellington Municipal Complex. How, for example, how are accessible, and they need to be mixed. You cannot just have on your playground one area that is, only accessible. They need to be mixed up with the other components of the park. This is in Jupiter, how a child on a wheelchair can actually access the playground. Very interesting. And even the sign, if you look at it, it has the accessibility icon there on the side. That does mean that that playground is an accessible playground. When we talk about ADA playgrounds, it's not only that the route to arrive to the playground is accessible, but also components of the playground, they also need to be accessible. That in terms of ADA. As part of this presentation, it's critical to address our comprehensive plan. That is the plan that was put together with the vision of this council and that was adopted in March 2018 and has specific policies that every time that we are reviewing a site plan and a development application, we are looking at our comprehensive plan and obviously to the code too. So this is a very important table that I copy pasted from the adopted 2018 comprehensive plan. And it's in the data and analysis of the future land use element. This table shows an overall how many acres should be dedicated to each of the different land use categories or designations. So as you can see, open space and recreation, the total acreage that was envisioned is 79 acres. So, and that asterisk is also important. It says a portion of the residential area will be allocated for open space and recreation. What that means is that in every neighborhood, hammocks, meadows, sky cove, there should be in those neighborhoods land dedicated to open space and recreation. That's what it means. So I also wanted to show you, give you a preview, how much parks are planned up to now, April 2021. We have planned 126.4 acres. So we are surpassing the 79 acres. And I will provide you a breakdown, how do we get to this 126.4 acres. So again, with regard to our comprehensive plan, we have a chapter or element called recreation and open space. And I want to read it for the record. What is the goal of this chapter? Is to provide recreation uses and open space accessible to city residents, offering active and passive recreation opportunities. So this is our big umbrella, our important goal that was approved not only by this city council, but also by the state of Florida. So in order to really have that deep understanding when we talk about community park, our comprehensive plan includes a definition. So in the definition of community park says, designed to meet the recreation needs of an entire community and generally has 2.5 acres for each 1,000 population. The term community park includes any related recreational facilities and can be publicly or privately owned. So anytime that we are talking about community park, we are referring to a park that has a number of amenities and it's expected that people will drive to the park. There will be ample parking area, for the people to drive to. So, because it's serving the entire community. So let's talk about neighborhood parks. Neighborhood parks are very different than community park, and this is also part of our comprehensive plan. Our definition says the neighborhood park is a walk-to park generally located along streets where people can walk or bicycle without encountering heavy traffic. Serves the population of a neighborhood in a radius of up to 1/2 mile and generally has 2 acres for each 1,000 population. So this is the part that you have in your neighborhood where you walk there with your child, or you put your child on a wagon and you just walk to the park. These are neighborhood parks. The scale is completely different. One thing is community park and another completely thing is a neighborhood park. Neighborhood parks are intrinsic to the quality of life of a neighborhood, of the people who live in that neighborhood. So, and they can be a bench, like the photo showing, with a path, with plants and shade area, or it could be also a playground that is located on the neighborhood. So now the question is, how are we doing? How is the city of Westlake doing with regard to the community parks and neighborhood parks? So according to our comprehensive plan, the city as built out needs a total of 40.23 acres of park to serve the community if we are thinking that the built out population is 16,000. So in terms of neighborhood parks, we need a built out 32.18 acres of parks, of neighborhood parks. So what do we have up to now? The total acres of park plan, and I put plan in red so we understand that most of them are being planned. So as April 2021 is 126.4 acres. So what does mean that? So basically, community parks is 105.04 acres, which includes Westlake Adventure Park, 14.88, Westlake Community Park, 50 acres, Westlake Dog Park, 1.16, Westlake Fitness Park, 39 acres. So at this point, we are exceeding by 65 acres that require community parks are built out because it requires 40.23. So, okay. With regard to neighborhood parks, it's required 32.18 acres, and up to now we have 21.36 acres. Please, but pay attention because we have a number of neighborhoods that we still didn't review, we still don't have application for. Each neighborhood, when I arrive to the city, they need to provide us the acreage for neighborhood park. So we will arrive to the required number of 32.18, and I'm assuming we are going to surpass that.
No, so I do have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for identifying that. So based on the park status report we received on the 4th of August in 2020, it identifies all of your numbers. So it states that the total amount of parks are going to serve 20,000 plus homes, correct? So in our comp plan, it does identify, maybe Ken, this may be a question, or the attorney, in our comp plan, because you're referring to we're in chapter 6, correct, of the comp plan where it identifies parks?
The
Okay.
element is, the chapter for recreation and open space.
Okay.
1 second, I can tell you exactly
Yeah,
what
in
is
this
the chapter.
chapter, I'm looking at directly.
Yes.
Okay, so would we, if we are talking to, are we talking to constituents about what they would like to see in these neighborhood parks, or are we limiting it to what the council decides? Because the neighborhood parks would be for our surrounding neighbors, so our acreage, our Loxahatchee, and things of that nature, correct?
No.
Oh, that would be our community
The
parks.
community park will be for the surrounding
Perfect.
neighborhood. The neighborhood park is just for the meadows or
Right,
the
Okay.
kayaks or, they are small parks.
sure. So for community parks, would they have any input in that, or no? Would that kind of fall into that community benefits piece, or how would that work?
How I would envision that to work is Nielsen, along with the rest of the staff, will have a pulse on what is needed in the area. And we will be bringing those type of things to you to not only service the residents of Westlake, but the surrounding residents that would be participating in that community park.
Yeah, that'll be done by
Some
population
short
density and
answers.
what's going on already. There's a lot of parks out here.
Correct.
And I had originally, went and looked at all the parks with Scott.
Mhm.
And I was kind of amazed at how little some of these parks get used out here.
Right.
Scott went over it with me pretty thoroughly, and it was, as things grow out here, that there's gonna be a lot of changes in what gets used, I'm sure. And with the help of the planning and zoning department being able to identify what is needed, in this 50 acres of park we have down here will be very important to get the plan right together that works for the whole community.
With Sid being in charge of the lanes, what is their say so in that?
Well, if you could revert back to the interlocal agreement between Sid and city, it says that they'll confer with each other to formulate a park plan. It's just that Sid would be the responsible party to get it constructed and operated. Potentially provide the programs, et cetera.
Well, we had unfortunately, I think COVID put a wrench in some of the plan that we had. Hopefully, we thought we were gonna go forward. I was hoping.
Not dead yet.
Not dead yet. That's a good feeling right there. I'm glad you said that, because I was under the impression that might be. Might have been.
Last I heard, it's not dead yet. It's still
Great.
out there, and we're hoping that it will resurrect and move forward.
That's very good news. It's very good news. Do you have any?
I'm good.
Please go ahead, Nelson.
Yes, so this policy is one of the critical policies that I have read so many times, I should know by memory. Every time that we receive the Meadows, Sky Cove, Crestwing, I go to this policy and I read it again. So the level of service standard for community park shall be 2.5 acres per 1,000 residents. That's gonna happen. I don't worry about that. The level of service standard for neighborhood parks shall be 2 acres per 1,000 residents. That's the one that we are zeroing in with each neighborhood that they arrive to our desk. The LOS standard shall be used to plan for the provision of adequate parks, the level of service. So, and again, every submittal that we receive, we look at how much parkland, how much open space are we getting with this specific neighborhood. However, the level of service shall not be used as a concurrency standard for the approval of development orders. So that's also part of the policy.
For the Hammocks, for example, neighborhood park, I know we got this little area on the northeast corner there of Whippoorwill.
I have photos coming through now for each neighborhood and each park.
Okay.
So this map just shows in general, the location of the community park. The community park, 50 acres is planned. um, on the south, and then we also have the fitness park, 39 acres in process. And the last news that I know is that we will receive an application at the first part of May. So it's coming through the fitness park, and that will be a community park because basically the whole will serve the entire community. Then obviously we have Adventure Park, has a phase 1 that has been executed and is in use, and phase 2 is in process. So that's the overall look of in terms of community park. So now we are going to speak one neighborhood at a time. So Hamax, which is in Part Q, phase 1 and phase 2, they provide a passive neighborhood park. No, they have walkways and benches, and I do have photos coming through. Meadows also has phase 1 and phase 2, and they have, as neighborhood park, they have passive parks with walkways and benches. With regard to Sky Cove, we also have neighborhood parks, and they are passive. So I also included the name of the developer in the table. Crestwind has one of the amenities that they have is active amenity. It includes swimming pool, tennis courts. So, and then they also provide other passive neighborhood area, which is with walkways and benches. Groves on Paro has a passive neighborhood park with walkways and benches. Party Estates, the same way, has a passive recreation area. Crossings and M2, it has a neighborhood park, and they have walkways and benches, and orchards, Part S, they also have a passive park. So now, also, I wanted to show specifics with regard to Adventure Park, what kind of amenities they have. So if they are active, because they have swimming pools, basketball courts and other amenities that are coming to phase 2. And the West, yes.
On the neighborhood parks, they're now all passive. Can the association choose to make that an active park and put equipment on it and stuff? Is that their decision, or they come before planning and zoning to do that?
Yeah, they will need to, yes, if they are changing anything on the development, it comes for a site plan modification, and
That would be left up to individual HOAs,
Right.
individual pods, depending on
So I was
the
referring to.
makeup of the community. Again, some communities would welcome it, other communities would say, we don't really need that, we like what we have. Totally up to them, because they would end up, because it's an HOA park, it would be theirs to care for and upkeep and liability insurance, et cetera.
Not to change gears, do we have an estimation when we're breaking ground on phase 2 of the adventure park?
at this point, I don't know, we are waiting the application. I know they are working really hard on it, and we are looking forward to receive that. We have no review, it has not come in front of council. It will be an application that council needs to approve. So also, we have like obviously the dog park and the fitness park that is, we will receive very shortly, I think the first week of May or something. So in total, we have 18 parks, 126.4 acres, 5 are active, 13 are passive. And here is the summary. So none of the parks are owned by the city of Westlake. None of the parks are owned by Palm Beach County. The district and the different developers, they own the parks at this point. This is the same slide that I put before. How are we doing in terms of level of service? So, and I have photos. Here they are. We all know the Adventure Park located on Pod PC1 and the Westlake Dog Park. These are the passive parks, Sky Cup, Hammocks, and Meadows. And I did drive by that pavilion this afternoon, and they have 2 benches. It doesn't show it, but yes, there are 2 benches there. So, um, and from this point on, there are a number of slides that describe 10 municipalities. So my suggestion is to, unless you want me to show any of these, but my suggestion is to jump into the summary of all the parks. So it's the slide 106. It's not working here. I'm supposed to put 106 and it will go to that slide. So let me just escape and try to see on the side so I can. Oh, it came there. So it's right there. So can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So from all the different municipalities, this is a summary. So 70%, remember, we only compare 10 municipalities. So 70% of those municipalities own 50% or more of their parks. So those are the municipalities. Palm Beach Garden owns 100%. So only 2 or 20% have 50% or more of passive parks. And so Westlake has 13 parks, which are passive. Tecuesta has six parks. For example, Royal Palm Beach provides 15 active parks and 5 passive parks. North Palm Beach provides 4 active parks and 2 passive parks. That's the breakdown and summary in terms of parks. So, oops. Now we will focus on table 3, city halls. So we selected again the same 10 municipalities that we analyzed for parks, and they have smaller to large population based on population size. So these are the municipalities that we look at very close in terms of, here you have population, city acres and square miles, and the square feet of city halls. We have a slide for each of them. So the city of Wesley at this point does not show, we don't have a square footage or acres for the city hall. My understanding is that the city is exploring options. So for Tecuesta, the population is 6,200. So, and the parcel size for the city is 4.5. And then that shows the square feet of the building for a population of 6,200. And I want to show this. We included areas of each of these city halls because most of them, they share with other amenities. For example, in Tecuesta, as you can see, they have the village hall, they have the fire and police station, and they also include a park, a village green park. That's the part that is used for 9/11 memorial or, solemn events, official events. The town of Lake Park has a population of 8,500. and then it has a building, a square feet of approximately 15,372. And again, it's also shared, the site is shared with a library and a police station. North Palm Beach has a population of 13,127, and then the square footage is, they have a village hall, and then they also lease a area on a shopping plaza. So on the shopping plaza, what they do is all the community development. They have building, planning and zoning, and code enforcement in the shopping plaza. And in the village hall, they have the city manager, HR, finance. So that is showing the village hall, and also is shared with the library and a park. And again, like I said, this village hall doesn't include building department, code enforcement, and it's on across the street on a plaza. Lakewood Beach City Hall is the population is approximately 38,000, 38,500, and then the parcel size 1.1. However, not all departments are there. They have the planning and zoning department building, they are completely in another site. So this is actually a historical building and it's located right downtown. Royal Palm Beach is the population is 40,000, and the square footage is 11 of the building is more than 11,000. And again, as this aerial we show, the site is shared with another amenities or facilities, police, postal service, they are in the same site. Palm Beach Gardens, more than 57,000 population, the square footage of the building, 30,785. And again, this is part of a complex as shown here on this area. We have the city hall, the fire station, and there is a community park. And they usually do the green market also in that area. Wellington. Wellington Village Hall, the population more than 65,000 and the square footage is more than 48,000 of the building. And this is showing how is the site between the village hall, and then there's also an aquatic complex, a community center. All of those buildings are part of this site. Jupiter Town Hall. Jupiter is a large city, more than 65,000 population, and this is showing the area for where the city hall is located, sharing with police and playground and the community center. West Palm Beach, that's our largest municipality, and as you know, it's a pretty large building sharing with the parking garage and the library. So the summary, the average parcel size is 12.4 acres. You know, the largest is Palm Beach Gardens and the smallest Lakewood Beach. And the buildings is obviously depends on the, you know, how large is the population. So the smallest is North Palm Beach with one of the smallest, 10,000 square feet for the village hall, plus approximately 4,000 for the building code enforcement, you know. So 80% of the municipalities that we look has extra activities, amenities, or service offered on the site. So these are final remarks of this analysis, and I just thought that was very, very important to remember. We are a new city. We started in 2016, so this is where we are now. So we have, again, a population projection of 16,000 by the year 2038. Currently, we are at almost 2,000 based on the certificate of occupancy, and which is 12% of our total estimated, and our total planned acres of park is 126.4 acres. So the number of planned park for community parks exceed the number required by the comprehensive plan. In terms of neighborhood park, I will just wanted to add here that will benefit to offer a diversity of active amenities and shade areas. Those benches, they will benefit if they have some kind of tree or canopy, like the dog park has a canopy, so it will be more inviting, more welcoming, those parks, because they will be highly used because they are right there beside your home. You can walk to those parks. But again, our level of service, we are keeping up with the development. So it's positive overall. So the city is exploring options for City Hall. So that's in terms of any questions.
Well, I'd like to mention, I know that the city manager, Mr. Castle, has been exploring different options for City Hall, and he can elaborate on that, I'm sure. And I have reached out to Mr. Carter about getting together about the 2.2 acres of land that we had talked about previously, and the soft cost on building a City Hall. I'm hoping we can go back to that and get that land from the developer, hopefully. And if not, or the other options, Mr. Castle's been looking into. So if you'd like to give this council update on that, I'd appreciate it.
While we're still on parks, yes, so just in your own opinion, your professional opinion, would you say, like, our state of the union right now, where we stand with our population that we have, are we ahead of the game? Are we lagging behind? What would be your opinion?
My personal opinion and professional opinion is that overall we are doing well. The planned parks are, we need to execute those parks.
And how are we doing on execution?
And community parks, I'm very looking forward to receive the fitness park that obviously we have already the adventure park, which is a community park, and now we are going to have the fitness park. That will be our second community park.
And you said the fitness park will be on our next agenda?
No.
You said
We
next
are
week.
receiving
Yeah.
the application at the beginning of May. Once we
We're
receive
in
the
April
application.
now, right?
Right.
So that is.
We'd be on the May agenda in order to get through the process, to end up being on your June.
In the June agenda, you would say, because once we receive it, we need to review it and work with the
You get it in
applicant.
April, we get it in May.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic.
Staff gets to slice and dice it and push back and make sure it meets all the standards and compliance things that we're looking at, to make sure, again, now we're looking at, is there a percentage of what's being installed or proposed, ADA, can the people roll up to it? They may not be able to do the entire functionality of it, but are all those parameters met as it's coming in? That information has already been relayed back to Mr. Herring and the design and stuff, so I know they're looking at it, and they're trying to make sure that we're comply as much as we can with that type of park, because it is a different type of fitness park. But yeah, we're working on it, and they didn't want to get too far ahead because it goes down and ties in down to where they're getting ready to do the culvert crossing. So they didn't want to get that in too soon while they're doing a culvert crossing, because it's pretty complex. So they're trying to time the two together.
The other side of your question is an answer with regard to community parks. With regard to neighborhood parks, the applicant has been providing the percentage. We are reviewing those with every neighborhood that we receive. And like I put on my previous slide, I believe they could benefit to provide more shade areas, at least a canopy or something. Right now they are just benches and a walkway.
I didn't hear you mention Crest Winds. Do they have a park?
Yes, they do. They have an active and they also have passive. The active is the large recreation center that has a swimming pool and everything.
Right. Excellent, thank you.
As far as City Hall, our biggest obstacle right now is a piece of dirt. We'll continue negotiations and discussions with the principal landowner as well as others. I'm also looking into some interim lease type space. Also have some discussions going on with some build, lease, purchase scenarios with different individuals that may be coming into the play.
So where would it go?
I'm not sure exactly yet, but there's players out there with different pieces of land that are working with Mr. Carter, so I'm also working with them. If we do not get a piece from Minto per se direct, is there another alternative? I'm exploring every alternative we can in order to figure out where we can find a location for a city hall that would be useful for all of us. Right now, it's a lot of options, no real traction on anything yet.
I don't think this building is cutting it. I'll say that on the record.
No mistakes.
Any other questions? Anything else anybody would like to add?
Just one more update on the city hall. What may have to happen in the city hall is if we end up with a piece of land, we may not be able to build the building per se first. We may be into more of a temporary type structures located on the property so that you can build the other building later. You know, we're looking at all those options as to how best to do it most economically so that it doesn't adversely impact the budget or the taxes.
Bottom line is, we're not standing on our own 2 feet as a city yet.
Right.
We need to be able to before we can have a beautiful building like
Right.
Wellington.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just the fact of the matter. We need something, and we need something better than this.
Thank you, Nelson. Mr. Dewey, would you like to, I know you like to comment.
How did you get? Tara Dewey, Lewis Longman and Walker, on behalf of Minto PBLH LLC. Good evening. It's nice to see all of your faces. I've only seen on my small screen at home, so it's nice to see you in person. Thank you for giving me an opportunity just to add a little history to some of the background that Nelson gave you so much information, so much good information. So I think it's always useful to take ourselves back to where we started and where we are, because it is a little mind shift for me, even sometimes having represented this piece of property for my entire legal career. Before Minto, I represented the predecessor owner. So I have been involved in this property a long time. It has a long and storied history, as your interim city attorney knows, as he and I have worked together in this area before. But let's just take a step back with regard to the Parks and Civic, because I think that's really important to contextualize. So when Minto was approved in 2014, and I'm saying this a little bit for the benefit of your public as well, because they may or may not have heard me give the history lesson, so bear with me. And feel free to ask questions. In 2014, this was a project. It wasn't a city, and that's important. Because there was a lot of neighbors who didn't want it to be a city, did not want it to have a great deal of commercial, did not want it to have a great deal of residential, and didn't want it to develop at all. So it was approved at a very low density intentionally, and it was intended to have a great deal, over half of the property, as open space and recreation. That is not moving forward. That's a history lesson. I'll get into the details, but that's important because now you're a city, and as you were just discussing, you want to stand on your own 2 feet, you want to ad valorem taxes, so there's a balance to be struck. The balance that was struck with the project, which covers most of what is now the city, not all of it, but most of it, was to dedicate a great deal of property for necessary public uses for the region. So as you already see, you have a tax collector site that wasn't even in our approval. They just came out and got one because it's so needed out here. And then there's the regional park. So Nielsen referred to it as a 50-acre park, and indeed that is what was required in our development agreement. The property that was ultimately dedicated to SID is actually closer to 74 acres, I believe, give or take an acre or two, which is, that's quite an increase from what we were required to get. So there's opportunities there to do additional things for the city. But that park was never meant to service only these residents, only this community. It was a regional park. It was for the surrounding area. So it's a huge facility, and it was a huge exaction at the time of private land from the developer. In addition to that, there are other planned parks that we have in the development order. And all told, there's a fire station. I'm just trying to remember all of our civic dedications. We have another additional site. We're currently in talks with the city and Palm Beach County to give another site to Palm Beach County as required. Our civic dedication was aggregated and met not pod by pod, but in the aggregate, because that's just the way of the world. You can only take so much private land. That being said, it is almost more important to Minto than it is to you. And I know that sounds crazy, but wait for it. To make sure that this is a livable community that has recreation that meets the needs of the residents, because if it doesn't, people don't want to move here. And if they don't want to move here, they're not buying our houses, and that's not good for us. So we are always looking to work in partnership. I will tell you, our development order doesn't have a pod by pod neighborhood park requirement. However, you heard with the linear park, we understand that at some point in the future, and as fast as Minto is going, I dare say it might not be that far away. They didn't tell me that, that's a sideshow. There will be a need for a park to the east to serve those residents who aren't as close to the adventure park. We understand that and intend to do a park. That's the one that I've been free to say that they're already thinking about. So we want to meet those needs. And I also want to remind you that another part of the exactions of the development order, which I think were great and have really benefited your community in terms of recreation, is your multimodal paths, which were once called rural parkways. Those parkway easements are very large. They go around your city, and they're connecting all of these different parcels to one another. So all that's to be said, yes, we are not planning to do a neighborhood park of grand scale in every community, and we don't think that's what you're asking for. And that's certainly not what your comp plan says, so we don't do that. We are happy to work with Nielsa on, I'm sure Don will plant a tree because he loves planting trees. Whether or not Sid wants to allow that because of the drainage issues, that's between them. But the passive parks, that's on top of everything else we're doing. So we want to work with you, but I just don't want to leave you with the expectation that we're going to start coming in with the neighborhood park in every community. Because some communities, that's not going to be reasonable, and it's not going to be what those residents want. The hammocks and meadows are one type of community. Crestwood had their own desires, given it's 50 and over. So that's just a little history. As far as the city hall, again, remembering that when we did all this, we didn't have a city. We were just part of the county, and in an unwanted part of the county. I make Mike laugh. So we are cognizant of the fact that we're now a city, and it's, Minto knew about that. So we are going to continue to talk with you about that, and we will continue to have a dialogue about that as we move forward. But it isn't a requirement, I have to say that, in our development order to do that. I think Minto has spoken before that they want to dedicate the land for that, so those conversations are still open, and I'm sure they will be had in the near future. So unless you have any questions, that is all I wanted to add this evening.
Thank you for adding.
Thanks.
Thank you. There's nothing further on that subject. We move on to city goals and objectives and work plan discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. Bob Concar's on the line, he cannot make it down. He had a conflicting appointment, so the drive down didn't facilitate that. But he is on the line and will be facilitating and walking us through the proposed work plan that's in front of you, and gathering your input and fine tuning it after that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Bob.
Okay. I wanted to go through this on the first page for the goals and objectives. As you remember, we went through the goals and objectives. I was able to narrow it down with consolidation of some of the thoughts into 5 different goals. If you can go to the first page, because I can't see that.
You have a PowerPoint on this or something?
No, he's just working from what was in the system.
I know I printed
Yeah.
it. There's a couple members that don't have it. All right, you have yours? No. Do you have it?
Yeah, it's all in the,
Okay.
it's in the package. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, so we narrowed it down to the 6 goals. There you go. If you can make that a little bigger, I think everybody can see it. What we did, the first goal was develop a long-term financial plan. As you recall, there were several different goals that dealt with financial issues. So we just went ahead and said that we would develop a long-term financial plan, and that's what this one is about. So you can see the first objective, and you remember when we discussed this, we talked about the goal being just the big picture, which is develop a long-term financial plan. And then the objectives were the specific steps that we would do in the annual work plan to make this happen. So the first one, objective 1A, would be develop a 7-year financial plan. Now, what this includes, there's 2 aspects of it. Objective 1A1, which is project city revenues based on specific factors. Now, the way that we've set this up, we would take historic revenue growth over the past 3 years. We would factor in anticipated growth rates, and then any supplemental revenue issues that would occur from growth, revenue sharing, et cetera. And then we would put together those projections on the increases in revenue over a 7-year period. Now, I think all of you know and are aware of the fact that under the current agreement, there is funding coming from the developer that will disappear in several years. So that will be taken into consideration. So objective 1A2 is to project expenses based on current trends. That would be O&M and capital. And then objective 1.3A would be to have a set of recommendations developed as part of the annual work plan on how we address gaps between revenue and expenses. All right, if you can move that down. Any questions on that part?
How bit that 7-year span, project the revenue over 7 years in a city that's just growing and we have no idea who or what is going to be here. Isn't that a bit long?
Well, it can be, but one of the things we wanted to do is obviously when you're projecting it out 7 years, normally what you find is, excuse me, anything beyond about 3 years becomes something that would be a tentative projection. What we wanted to make sure, though, is that we looked at the revenue and the expense in this model, and what would happen to the city once the developer funding out. That's why we put 7. But obviously, with when you're looking at 1 to 7 years, you'll be able to see what happens as that funding runs out, and then what specific steps we could do to do that. Now, you are correct. There are a lot of variables. There's a lot of unknown things. So 7 years is kind of would be a tentative, but this way it gives you an idea of what things look like long term based on what we know now. And when we're doing financial planning, you want to make sure you have some kind of idea about where you think you'll be as you move forward in the next coming years.
My feeling on this is a lot of it depends on the economy, obviously, and what happens in the development process of the area. The developer carries a lot of weight in this, and how this moves forward. Whatever we can do to assist the developer in going forward is going to determine whether we reach that number that we need to reach, I think.
And typically what we have done in the past, ones that I've been involved in, is as you get further out, you become a little more conservative in your projections of your revenue from what might be a trend line that's, rising really steep. Once you get out to 3, 4 years, 5 years, you start flattening that some so that you don't overestimate your revenue to a point where you're kidding yourself as to reality down the road. If you actually make it, that's a benefit. But if you project for it and you come up way short, you got bigger problems. So it's always better to under project your revenue, over project your expenses, so that you can come out with something that'll work for you in reality.
In those projections, seeing that the land is owned by the developer, not by the city, are there then discussions between you and the developer that we may not know about upcoming projects? And are they built in that, or?
Well, the things that are coming, I mean, you've got H that's coming for commercial. We just had a meeting today with the Winn-Dixie people. So that's coming back in, which will add a boon to our overall plus employment opportunities. Other than that, in the Publix parcel, there's nothing else that I'm aware of. But based upon how fast H came together, I would expect that there's other people talking to the principal landowner out there that we're not aware of yet.
Just saying it might be helpful even if we don't know, if there was a discussion, so, you can be a little more precise about this.
When I am able to or find out that there is things on the horizon, I will share that with the council. But right now, I do not know of anything imminent on the horizon for any of the parcels of land, other than that we've got Pulte trying to work on 100 acres of Silver Lakes. Other than that, commercial and stuff, I don't have any.
How does, forgive me for interrupting, how does Winn-Dixie affect our tax roll? I was under the impression that the plaza pays us X amount regardless of those stores sit empty or not.
Correct, tax, but you also end up with your sales tax, your other taxes that they start generating. You have other information. You have BTRs that are based upon values, et cetera. So those kind of things will be an extra source of revenue coming into the city. And so it does help. Does it increase our tax base like a new building? No.
Not like Publix will.
Not like Publix. But does it add extra benefit? Yes, it does.
And it adds daytime traffic.
Daytime traffic, daytime jobs, et cetera, et cetera.
While I'm interrupting.
Go ahead.
Nielsa, I completely forgot to mention this. Can we, or can whoever, can we look into possible grants for special need parks, for ADA parks? From what I understand, there might be some of those out there, some money to create some special needs parks. I had it here.
We have a specialist, apropos of what your conversation you're asking. I know there's people out there that just do grant writing. And that may be an avenue to go down.
I'm aware of one firm that I work with in another location that that's their specialty. It's basically a flat fee.
Yeah.
They get the grant, then they administer the grant for another percentage, but if they don't get it, it's still a flat fee for them to chase it. But they've been successful. That firm brought in for one project about $400,000 of a $1 million project. So they are out there. It's
looking at
just
alternative funding for things and not simply relying on our stopgap funding from the developer. Let's start making some money.
And again, as with all grants, the devil is in the details. There are some grants that seem to be great, but the value of the grant compared to the value of what it takes to administer the grant and track it for the number of years, it's almost not a
The
return.
one benefit that we have as a city is we need everything, because we're so brand new. I mean, if there's money out there that we can latch onto, let's go ahead and try and do it.
Well, but I think that's one of the goals of Objective 1A3 is in addressing those gaps, how would you do that? Gaps in shortfall of the revenue versus the expense or expense versus revenue, then that's where you would have all of those things listed. It would be, potential grants. There are some other things that can be done. Outside of, because I think the mayor already mentioned, well, it depends on the economic growth. That's where Objective 1B comes in, because we don't want to just project the revenue and the expense and say, well, here's some ways we could do that, unless we're going to step forward, in my opinion, with a specific economic development plan on how can the city develop its economy going forward. And that's where Objective 1B comes in. And in 1B, one of the things that we would do is that we would have in our opinion, have a professional come in and develop an economic development plan. Now, this is a little different than a marketing plan, which I know that's one of the goals. We'll get to that in a minute on rebranding and marketing. But the point of an economic development plan is to look at the economy of the city, the specifics of what makes Westlake unique, what things may work, what things may not work, as opposed to just saying, well, we need growth. So, if we can get the growth, we'll get the revenue. That's not the point. The point is, what specific steps could the city take that will benefit the city of Westlake the most in terms of an economic development plan? Are there specific types of industries, commercial operations that would best suit Westlake, again, based on what you currently have and what you project for the future? And that's where the 1B1 comes in. And we've laid out some steps on how you can do that, because that's got to be a companion with any study, any type of plan for the future is, how do we develop the economy within the city itself?
I think you did a great job capturing information. However, some of the language, I would have liked to have seen you mention transparency, inclusion, collaboration. A little, I think it's a good plan that you have worked out. I also was looking at, you may get to it where we talk about the creation of jobs. I think one thing that we do have here in Westlake is we'll be creating job opportunity because of all the development that is going on. So I would have liked to have seen something where we identify and talk about the creation with the economic plan, the creation of job opportunity. And it may be in here underneath the economic development, I just don't see it.
Well, but that would be the goal, though, is to the economic development plan would include specifics on how the city can grow its specific revenue base, industrial base, commercial base. And that would cover all of the items you just mentioned, because again, this is not a one size fits all type of economic development plan we're talking about. We're talking about something that's specifically targeted to the city of Westlake. And that's why I think this is an important part of the future of the city, is having a good statistical base. Here's where the city is right now. Here are the specific things that the city does well. Here's some things maybe that we don't need to worry about. And so your efforts are focused on those things that would best benefit the city, as opposed to just some type of general economic development plan. And all those things you mentioned would be included in that. And the other thing about an economic development plan is it would give you specific projections. So, as an example, if these types of businesses were encouraged to grow and develop within the city, here's the kind of revenue impact to city revenues that you could expect as a result of those.
Sure. So Ken, I guess my question would be to you, is this a document for, because we've heard from residents that we don't have enough transparency. Is this a document that we would have on the website for them to be able to refer to?
Yeah, as soon as we kind of finalize the plan, that'll be made available for the residents to see what we're trying to accomplish. And again, it puts forth to be part of the information as part of the budget process as well. So it'd be in the budget documents, where are we trying to get to, what are we doing, what's our forecasting? Because we already do some forecasting in the budget, if you remember the charts and graphs we're already doing. This will help formalize it and fine tune it a little bit more.
In what Bob just said, is it, I have a hard time understanding all that stuff. Because the city doesn't own any land, the developer owns the land. Are we, if we were to lay out a plan as to, or have a recommendation what fits the city goals best, would we then go back to the developer and say, this is who we want you to do business with, or how is this supposed to work?
No, we're in a unique situation in the fact that we don't have any land, we won't ever really probably have much land. The uniqueness that we have is in attracts, and one of the things that's attracting the commercial people right now is the fact that we have clear-cut standards, predictability. We do plats faster than anybody else can do plats. We process information, we get people going so that their return on their dollar is faster, sooner. One of the things that we could do as we've developed this, I'm sure we could work with the major landowner as far as reaching out to specific industries of saying, hey, we're a city, we're here, we can do this, come check us out. And by the way, these people over here own the land, so talk to them, but we'd love to have you. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I think we have the opportunity to do as far as encouraging business. Tax incentives, et cetera, does nothing but shifts the burden to the residents, and we're just not gonna do that.
So that firm that we pay, aren't they doing that already? Aren't they putting Westlake out there on the map?
They're doing PR work right now. They're doing the back and beyond series as the first part. Then, as we were talking, and one of the other ones that's in here is the not rebranding, but the next step of that branding, how to advertise that, how to put that out there. The part of this would also be identifying what targeted groups do we want them to send that information to? What targeted groups do we want to send the back to beyond, where we were, where we are, where we're going, to specific types of businesses to pique their interest. They may have not even known that something like us is in Palm Beach County, when all of a sudden they go, oh, I can go out there, I've got a workforce, I've got, all these other amenities, all these other things happening. All of a sudden, instead of being east, they'll come west.
So the firm that we've been paying, what specifically, have they just put Westlake out there as there's a place for you to live? Or have they addressed?
No, they're working on, they're finishing up I believe I'm supposed to get either this week or next week, the first cut of all the documents, the video that's been done. They've shot a bunch of video, they've done a bunch of interviews, they've done a bunch of research to put as to what they call back to beyond, where we came from, where we are, where we're going. They've interviewed the mayor, myself, Mr. Massey, Mr. Carter, and others, as well as a lot of filming and document retention as far as looking at older aerials, et cetera, to paint the picture of who we are, where we came from.
And they come back to us to present that,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And we have the approval.
Yes, ma'am. Before it goes out, and matter of fact, that's week before last, we did some final filming, we did some walkabout pointing filming for some overlays They're supposed to be bringing back the first blush of this. Once we kind of review it and tweak it inside, we'll be bringing it back to you all for a final review and a tweak before it goes out the door. But I think it's, from what I've seen so far of the information that's provided, I think everybody will be very favorably impressed.
I can't see it.
Bob, back to you.
Yeah, I just want to, again, emphasize that, these were the steps that we think will help to implement the goals that the council has at least agreed on tentatively. That's the idea, because unless we have, even though I think some of the comments that have been made are certainly spot on, you still have a stake and a say in how the city would grow. And when you get the kind of statistical information that would come from an economic development plan, it's going to help you plan financially as well. It's not just about the developer, since obviously the developer is going to be developing their property as they move forward. This way, to me, with this kind of information, it helps put the city in a much better partnership position with the developer, because you're going to have some specific information from a professional group that demonstrates, hey, here's some things that we can accomplish together. Obviously the developer is going to prosper from this, but then the goal ultimately of the developer is to help the city prosper, because as they do, then they're going to do the same. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship here. But the key is we've got to have some information to know what we're talking about. It can't be just, well, we think these things will happen down the road. You can't really build a financial plan on that. And that's why the economic development aspects become real important in projecting, future revenue and expenses. Okay, can we go on down? These are just some additional steps in terms of working on an economic development plan. We've laid out some things in the scope of service. And then we talk about down in objective 1B2, once it's created, here's what happens. And the other thing is on step objective 1B3, I threw this in there because I think this is important. Establish a City of Westlake Economic Forum, because you will already have current businesses and commercial development within the city. One of the things I think that you really need to think about going forward is, how can you take the current development that's within the city and create a partnership that may help you grow even more? And that's where this economic development forum would come in. You would, set up a group that would meet with the current commercial operations within your city and get their input. What kind of things help them grow? What kind of things help them prosper, which in turn helps the city? What steps can the city take? Because, again, it's like anything else. We can project things. We can, any group, whether it's a city council, county commission, whatever, they can say, well, here's the things we'd like to see happen. But we really need to have a forum in which those businesses that are here can give you real input on the things that are happening to them day by day, whether it's regulations, national economic issues, local economic issues. And that's why this becomes really important, I think, to have a partnership with your commercial operation within the city, where they're having direct input with a group formed by the city council. And we laid out some steps on that. I think if you can go on, Zoe, and just because we kind of wrapped that up. And then the other thing is, an objective 1B4, establish the City of Westlake Business Development Center. Again, this is a companion to what we've already talked about, where the center would assist in helping existing operations grow as well as promoting good new growth. And that's why we put in there, establish the Gantt chart for short and long-term implementation of the strategies for the Business Development Center. Because again, it's not just about projections, it's about real world things that help businesses grow within the city.
Is it too, I'm sorry, is it too much to ask, that a reference be made to the pillars that are already in place for the county as it relates to the economic piece of this?
No, that is obviously part of this plan because you've already got some existing things that help benefit growth within the city proper. And so you want to include them in this type of analysis and plan going forward. So yes, you're exactly right.
Okay, and you refer to it with this when creating it?
When we create it, yes.
Okay.
Because again, now the other thing is you want to keep in mind, one of the things we want to do with this plan is not necessarily go out and reinvent the wheel because there's already some existing things that are there helping the city grow. And so you want to recognize those, you want to foster those in any type of plan, not just create something new, because in some cases you may not need to have a lot of new things come in, but you want to have the best information to make your decisions on as a council. And that comes from, national issues, state and local. And I think you've already made the point that there's a lot of things that are already in place that can help us, and you want to foster those in any plans you make.
Right.
All right, unless there's any other questions on the financial plan, the other item, goal number 2 was enhanced communications. I think everybody touched on that. And we tried to break this down into several different pieces. One of them was, because this was mentioned by several council persons, which was establish communication protocols for actions between the city staff, the council, and the residents. Now, as we go through these things, some of these things are already in place. So we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, but we wanted to try to lay out a framework for the things that we think will help benefit. And again, some of these things have already been put in place, but there are, areas we want to expand and focus on as we move forward. And so objective 2A1 is establish a standard communication format, between the manager and the city attorney. You already have regular reports. Just in the time I've spent at the meetings, I know Ken does a good job of giving you a standardized report, but I think the question is the reports that you would get from the city attorney and the city manager, is that the kind of information that helps you make decisions and keep you up to date on what's going on? And that's something that only you as a council can make that decision on. And then objective 2A2 is the establishment of communications between the city staff and residents. Again, some of these things are already in place, but we just want to lay out things that we see could be enhanced. But the other thing is in this particular layout here that we have on the objective 2A2, I think one of the things that helps in the council making their decisions and moving forward and directing the direction of the city is if you have key performance indicators. That's where this kind of information would come in, where you get reports on a quarterly basis, whatever you decide is important, and these key performance indicators would tell you how long does it take somebody to answer a call, wait times on the phone, response times to inquiries from the website, and so on. This way you can measure how effectively and efficiently the city staff is responding to inquiries from the residents as well as the council. So part of this on objective 2A2 is establish key performance indicators that you can look at in just a quick, what we call a dashboard look. And again, you can have a monthly report or quarterly report, but have a quick dashboard report that shows you these key indicators and say, well, yeah, I mean, they're taking 90% of the calls are being answered within, a minute, 30 seconds, whatever it is. And then you can have a snapshot on what's going on within the city in terms of communication between the staff and the residents. And that helps you to measure the efficiency and the performance of your staff. All right, if you want to go on down.
While we're still on communication, I just wanted to mention the one thing specifically that I think would be really, really wonderful to have in terms of staff communicating with our residents is I'd love to see the development of a Westlake application for the phone. We bill ourselves as a forward-thinking, progressive city. That's the way the world is going. I think an application that, it could just be a clone of our website with all that information, but an app on the phone where it has the one-way communication from the residents receiving information from the city, but also it being an application, we'd be able to push information, just like you get the push notifications for your reminders and everything else. This incident we just had on Friday, that could have been a push notification where everybody in the city gets an alert on their phone immediately. At the very least, I'd like to look into what it would cost to develop an application. The Westlake app.
In the process of reaching out already to a couple different operations to see if they develop apps for that and pricing for those. As well as it was pointed out to me that our website is fully functional off of a phone.
Right, there's a mobile
version of it, so when you log in, it's there. But I understand what you're saying is you want something more to get back to the people that put the app on, so that if we send out a notification that like the reverse call, the 911, the red phone kind of situation, it goes to their app as well as
it's an incredibly useful tool. I know it's tough to wrap your head around it if you're not immersed in it now, but apps are where we're going in this world. I think we should be on the cutting edge instead of lagging behind.
Could that go under, what would that go under? Would it be building a community brand or marketing for the city?
Communication
Goal number
enhancements.
Communication.
Communication, that's other right under goal number 2.
So goal number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions then on the first part on the communication? All right, then we're on to goal number 3, develop a rebranding and a marketing plan. I think as you already know, you do have a group that is doing that for you, or at least in part doing this. But I think the next step would be is having a meeting with them and talking specifically about, developing a really targeted rebranding marketing plan for the city. And to me, I could see that unfolding in a workshop where you sit down and say, here's the things that we'd like you to address in a specific plan. What would it take to get us there? Any costs that would be involved. What do you think would work best for the city of Westlake?
I can see that as a joint meeting with the developers also. There's a number, we have developers here, and we may have another one in Silver Lakes. Being able to sit down with them and come up with a plan collectively. There's a lot of talent there from our developers themselves to be able to come back and help out with this. And whatever we can do collaboratively would cut the expense too.
And also, I think that once we get the Back to Beyond out, we can roll that out. We can say, okay, where do we want to go from here? What's the next step? That becomes our basis for stepping and leaping out to the next round. And I agree 100%, bringing in the key developers as their input also, because they know what they're trying to accomplish internally. If we can help facilitate it, that's the ideal realm.
Well, and just one other comment about this part of it is I think the key here is what would come out of this goal number 3 would be a really good communication tool between the developer and the city itself, because you're dealing with specifics here, not just saying, well, we need good communication with the developer and moving things forward. This really would be the way to do that in terms of having specifics that would benefit, obviously, the city as well as the developer and the property owners within the city itself. Okay, if there's no other questions on that, goal number 4, this was another one that I think several of the board members, the council members had hit on, and this was enhance the HAPPY program. We have some specific objectives on things that would need to be done in terms of addressing municipal housing. Again, you do have a program in place. What can be done to enhance that program? What are the specific steps we would want to take to make sure we can do this? And that's where we've addressed in objectives 4A1 and then through 4A3.
I know that we've increased the eligibility, income eligibility for the program. With the cost of developing and the increase in cost of building homes and the increase in the cost, I almost think that one of the things we might want to look at is if the income, if the houses get raised in cost, if they go up 10% or 20% or whatever that number is, that the possibility of sliding scale this HAPPY program along with the cost. That way it moves together with what the increases are. That way then the incomes aren't coming up as fast, I don't think, as what the costs have done. But at least it might fill that gap, and it would be something where we don't wait until, we have it come before the council to do it. Maybe we can do it on that scale the same as what the costs have gone up for the homes.
We're in a very unique situation right now in the world, being that the price of lumber is almost more than a gallon of gas for a 2x4. That being said, this one is so incredibly important, and I know that we were able to put a little Band-Aid on it when we raised it to 367. But I don't know if we need to workshop this, or you guys need to workshop it and bring it back to us, or something. We have to fix this HAPPY program.
What we'll do is we'll come back, we'll look at the analysis of the ones that we've seen, the applications, and which ones are missing again. We'll look at that spread and see where we are. But again, part of it is not only the price of homes, but it's also economics for the individual. In other words, they may have their internal revenue, et cetera, that really doesn't.
We can create our own housing crisis where we get people into homes that they can't afford.
Correct. Yeah, and vice versa, or based upon their incomes and stuff, they should be able to afford it without an issue. But they've done certain things and put themselves upside down in other areas to prevent them from it. We don't want to facilitate that either. So it's walking a very fine line. But I know in some discussions that I've had and heard Councilman Long Robinson make, also might want to look at some other types of housing programs or assistance programs that are different. We may not be able to fund them at this point in time, but we can put them in place. I know that Wellington, for example, they have a program for seniors of a certain thing with certain incomes that they help them with low interest or no interest, non-payback type loans for roof repairs, for other types of things, for people on fixed incomes, et cetera, et cetera. So those kind of things are some of the things I think we could look at that would enhance our potential for housing. We may not be able to fund them right now, but we can go ahead and get them in place so that as we mature, as we continue to change, and we've already got some of these things listed under the Sadowski Fund, so those kind of things, how can we channel that? Right now, they don't fit into our current program, but we can see how can we channel those type of funds into another program that we can pick up those funds and utilize to help people in certain situations.
Your Honor, one of the things that concerns me the most here is that you're one man, and it seems like you got a one-man show going around on here a lot of the time. And how much help do you have to do these other things that need to be done? I'm concerned about that because there's a lot of, you're wearing a lot of hats, and there's a lot of things that we want to get done. How do we accomplish that on a timely basis?
Segue into bringing in another employee.
Yeah, I'm just.
Yeah,
I'm concerned about it.
actually, in the May meeting, I'm going to be bringing in, because I need to bring in a operations coordinator full-time to help take some of this, not necessarily off of me, but off the rest of the staff, because I think Nielsen and the rest of the staff will know that I task all of them pretty heavy, and we're all running full speed. So yes, we continue to need to grow. So we're going to be looking at that in the May meeting to bring in a person to do operations coordination. Plus, we're revamping a lot of our processes to try to slim them down, smooth them out, because some of our processes were convoluted. As I mentioned, I have one of my finance people up here as an interim on site, pulled them out of my Coral Springs office, brought them up here to help out and cover some of those shortfalls. So we have resources, not that I can dedicate 100% to, but that I can bring in and work on, but also as utilizing S.A. Nelson for the PR. I'm not doing that. That's their specialty. The housing thing is another specialty. The specialty items will be bringing in as needed, again, not to have personnel on staff per se, but bring the expertise when you need them. When you don't need the expertise, they're not there. What I think you see, when you see like wearing a lot of hats, I'm not actually doing, I'm coordinating. I'm trying to make sure everybody else has got their things going at the time frame. But as I stated last year, we're going to budget as we're growing. Didn't know when we're going to have to add somebody or how much we're going to have to add, but right now I'm going to have to bring in one for sure. In another month and a half, it might be coming back for another one, because I need to make sure that the overall coordination and stuff continues to move forward in a expeditious manner.
Well, it's gonna move at the same speed as everything else is moving.
Correct.
Here, because you can't accomplish these goals without putting somebody directly onto them.
Great.
And making it a priority. That leads me to ask, I know that we talked about the budget numerous times. At this point, we anywhere near being able to put some sort of projection together as to where we're gonna be setting in year 7 at this point? We're coming up on the mid 4.5 now, I think, about, right? So,
Yeah.
I know it's almost impossible to do that, but,
Well, we've got the historical information where we're at. We got the new valuation just came in, the preliminary came in of our growth from last year over this year. So we can project our revenues and stuff. We can also look at our trends for building permits, starts, COs, and look at that projection. And utilize that to project it. And I'm probably as concerned about the deadline as you are, Mr. Mayor, because if we don't make it, then I have to figure out what services or what I have to cut or can cut to trim it down to make sure we can survive. And that's hard because a lot of the services have to be there regardless. You know, and how do you service the resident with that level of service? We also are looking at continuing to try to find ways to do more online in systems where you put the information in the system and it's tracking it. So you're not having to have somebody do data entry and track deposits and all this kind of stuff. So we're trying to push more towards that. So when you apply for something, you put it in, it's there, you just pick it up and keep going from there.
Well, it's going to be very important to work on the economic development with the developers to get in the right type of businesses and residents here. I mean, but businesses also, they're a major part of the tax base. And be able to work on specifics that, I mean, at this point, nonprofits aren't going to, it's great to have them. I love churches and so on, schools and all that, but that doesn't help our tax base. So anything that we can do to help to get the other types of businesses in here, it's going to be very important for someone at this point, a developer, to come in and say, we're ready to develop the downtown. I think that's going to be the catalyst of all that happens here over the next couple of years. If we were lucky enough to have a developer say, listen, we want to take this project on and develop the downtown area, I think we'd have a real fight, a serious fighting chance then of balancing the budget. So I'll be anxious to hear what the Mento group has in the bag for coming up in the near future, hopefully. That would be very encouraging to hear someone say the downtown area is going to be developed.
It's, if you look at some of the statements I've made over the past, every commercial operation has their own matrix. Some are rooftops, some are daytime, some are combination rooftops, daytime. But as soon as it gets to the point where that particular organization triggers, they'll trigger. Right. And then there's other organizations that trigger after that first guy triggers, because they may have the similar demographics or a little bit different. But when A starts in, B, C, D, and the rest of them are on the trail in a heartbeat because they realize that that's the time they have to strike. The pandemic has, in the new paradigm of business, has thrown a big twist in everybody's matrix. It's quite evident. However, even internally, I have Nielsen and them looking at, and engineering looking at our parking ordinance, reworking the parking ordinance, because if you look at it, Chick-fil-A, for example, every one of them is a double drive-through with a roof over. Our code really didn't provide for that initially, so we're tweaking. Also,
Does that mean the Chick-fil-A?
No, I'm getting ready for it.
Is there something you're not telling us?
No, there's nothing that I know of. Would I love to have one out here? Yes. Are they in the queue? Not that I know of. But even your McDonald's, your Burger Kings, everybody's getting the double drives. And it was over Boyle Tropical by there. They even have people outside taking the orders and doubling up and stuff. You know, with all the pickups, whether it's Outback or whichever, you now have the call ahead, you go by, you pick up and go home. Those kind of situations are occurring more and more. So we're looking already with the paradigm shift is how we can fix or be ready for those type situations. You got some news for me?
It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Come on, Nito. No, I'm sorry. I don't have no Chick-fil-A. I don't have that news. I don't have that news. I'm looking for a coffee spot. That's what I really want. No, Tara Dewey, again, Lewis Lemon Walker on behalf of NWPLH. And I just wanted to add to the conversation that, we're really happy to be involved in the conversation on all these levels, and it's very important. And I'll tell you, and I have to applaud your staff, the reason we have, this is the fastest selling community in the nation. We're doing great, and I understand the urgency. And so I think what I would like to encourage is the continued cooperation and the hard work of your staff with us, because your staff is really good at being open and flexible. And the reason people want to come here is because in many jurisdictions, there is There's just a typical code that was put in place in the 1980s that does not fit the modern world, does not fit the modern economy, does not fit what people want to do. But to change it is like turning the Titanic in certain jurisdictions, because you've got entrenched people who are just used to having it and they're afraid of. You have this beautiful blank slate, which your team has been very cognizant of making sure the code is going to protect your future residents. Because like I said, happy residents, we sell more houses. But as it turns, you guys and your staff are able to turn on the dime. So we're talking about the parking. And as long as we're all coordinating, that's how this is going to keep moving. And, you know, we have no complaints with your staff in that regard. They always are involving us when they're looking at the code. We don't always agree, of course, but as long as that dialogue continues, that's what's going to keep moving us forward. And so we appreciate that opportunity. And as soon as I know when there's going to be Chick-fil-A, and it's moving faster than I thought it would, there's definitely more development coming, almost exponentially. It's bananas.
We hit the trick point.
We
From my
did.
perspective.
We learn something new every day, don't we, Catherine? So it's exciting, it's gonna be good, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. But I did want to just thank your staff for working with us to date and to continue to work with us on being flexible with the code provisions, because that is really key to say when you have a big developer coming and say, look, we use in Seattle this method of parking and it is great, and it doesn't look like anything anyone does in Florida. That's not bad. Sometimes that's great. And your staff is open to that. So that's what helps, I think, a lot. Thank you.
Is that an actual factual statement? Are we the fastest selling community in the nation?
We are one of the
90%?
fastest, yeah, you should have been, I believe that Mr. Carter of Minto sent around that, one of the fastest
Yes.
communities in the selling.
No, I saw that. You said we were the fastest growing.
I think we are in the
We
top.
are the top
Yeah,
number one
yes, they should have
in the
been.
nation?
I will verify, no, I don't want to, now you're scaring me that I
That's
didn't
pretty
get it right.
incredible if it's in the entire nation.
Well, it is in the nation, in the top. I can't say, I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to say for sure that it was number one, but it was in the fastest growing.
Well, and you know, I'm glad you said that, because this doesn't have to do with you, Terry.
Okay.
Thank you.
To the young man, I did have on, my page under building a community to engage media to promote. We need to have that written to do more press conferences about that, so that I think Minto does a good job with branding Minto, but us doing and that could be
Push
for
the pie
everyone
to
else.
where we're at.
Absolutely. So engaging more, enhancing our community, the pride, the recognition that we receive, and then getting more press releases out for things of that nature.
That's sort of, while I was talking about that, I may have jumped the gun a little bit, but I invited Alicia to come attend these meetings in person, since the audio and WebEx is so bad. So I just want to tell everybody while we're talking that she can safely social distance.
Yes, we're open for social distance and.
Unilaterally make that decision.
Yes.
without talking
To be
you.
social distance, we have space for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 people,
Yeah.
plus the 3 that are here currently.
Want to let everybody know, I did go ahead
We're
and
just
extend that
gonna-
invite to her.
I think everybody should get, I think we're gonna start to get more attendance as things, COVID thing.
Yeah, just because
Subside.
she's our hometown news source,
Right.
so that is important to.
I think what we should do though, I think is, if someone's coming, they need to tell us in advance, because we're gonna need to know. how
We have
many
limited
seats.
space.
Either that, or they're gonna have to sit outside, which is not gonna do them any good.
Well, we still haven't opened.
And it's
up
getting
for
hot
the
out,
public
so-
yet, have we?
Yes, we're open to a public meeting, it's just socially distanced.
So is other reservations required? How's that work?
What I would say going forward at this time is if somebody's interested in attending in person, contact the city clerk
Right.
so she can get a head count.
Can we push that information out?
Sure.
Number 17, top selling master plan community in the US. I found the email.
17, that's
So
still
then
amazing.
that should be a press release.
Does that mean we're number 1 in Florida?
No, Village is still,
Village.
we're number 2.
Number 2 in Florida. Got it. Thank you.
All right, so unless there's any other questions on goal number 4, I think we're on to the last one.
Bob?
Who is that?
He's gonna need another haircut.
Boy, Bob, you're very patient. Thank you.
This is, again, these were comments from several council members. Develop a clearinghouse for workforce development within the city. As we mentioned with other, with the economic development plan, you already have some things in place with the county, even the state, and some federal. But the idea here is to create a clearinghouse where residents can go and get information, and be directed to places that may assist them in terms of developing the workforce within the city itself. It wouldn't necessarily include training would be a big part of this, because obviously the more training opportunities there are, then the faster local residents can develop. And there are resources available for these types of programs, federal, state, and local. So that's what we tried to capture in Objective 5A1 as well as 5A2, where this information could be gathered and posted on the city's website, and residents could access it and get information that they may not be able to get in other places, or if they did, they'd have to do days worth of searching in different locations.
Very good. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members?
Thanks, Bob.
We'll go back based upon the information received tonight and fine tune this and come back and put it into a finished work product.
Great. Thank you. I'd like to see that budget forecast as soon as we can put it together. Thank you. Okay, city council comments. Councilwoman Robinson?
No comment.
No comments? Councilman Patrick Paul?
I just have a question, just for my understanding. And this lawyer sitting there all night,
Yes.
for this particular meeting, was his presence actually needed? Does he have to be here? Do we have to spend this money, or could he have been at home doing what he likes doing?
WandaVision with my daughter, perhaps?
That would have been,
No.
well, and I'm not meaning to
No,
offend.
no offense is taken.
It's a serious question.
I think it was kind of a judgment call on this one. Partially for the firm, as we're in transition right now, to get a sense of what the other pressure points are that are out there, what things are going, so that as we go into writing the RFQ and doing the transition, that they are also aware of what is happening type of thing, so that as we go through the RFQ process and selection, that we put out the information for whoever's coming in to really have a fuller picture of it. And it's a different set of eyes for that perspective. So that's why I did ask them to be here tonight.
So,
They said they didn't really, in general, a workshop not necessarily requires the attorney to be there, but on this one, I thought it was critical because we're looking at goals and objectives of planning and things like that, so that they need to be aware of it.
Then the other question, going back to last Friday in the event with this board that ran off and whatnot, I'd asked you in one of our conversations sometime back if it would be some advantage for the council members, at least the ones that live in here, to have access to all the communities or code to all the communities. Friday, I guess, as it turns out, it would have been advantage to open the gate to the police and fire department, whoever can come in.
Police and fire have their emergency codes to get in already. They're all.
Did you not open the gates for them?
You
No,
open the
that
gate on
was
60th.
the gate at 60th, not a physical.
Oh, it's 60s, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was an access, and I did impart
that was
the,
actually Sid, actually, that's county, isn't it?
well,
It's gotta be county.
two or three different jurisdictions. West Palm Beach has an easement over it. It's actually Minto's land, but Sid has an easement access over it. And so there's also, I think there's 3 different locks on the gate that are daisy chained together, so. But yes, it's, the officers, we've got some new sergeants and some new lieutenants assigned to us out here. They now have the codes passed down to them as well, so they have the access codes that's passed to the individuals that are out here. And I will, I did relay to Captain Turner, and thanked him for the response that PBSO put together for us in that incident, and how quickly and how much resources they were able to muster as needed, if needed. It was pretty fantastic. I mean, they really did a great job. And the nicest thing about it too was that not only were they talking about our area here, the guys in Box Groves, the guys out west, the guys over in Palm Beach Gardens, all over the place, kind of share the same channel. So they're hearing the chatter. So everybody's eyes in a 10 or 12 square mile radius were being perked up and listening and looking. So not asked to, but they hear the chatter, so they're curious and their eyes are open, which just to me is a testament to the positive of using PBSO on our PD because of that vast resources they have for us.
It was amazing. It was absolutely incredible.
Vice Mayor?
I'm skipping.
No.
No, I'm good, sir.
No, very quickly, I just want to thank Neilsa for her presentation, and thank you, Tara, for all the wonderful information. Thank my colleagues on the council for their leadership. Thank you.
I want to thank your response on Friday, Vice Mayor, and also Mr. Castle for jumping in very rapidly there and taking care of things. And I want to welcome our new attorney, our interim attorney.
Thank you.
Right.
Nice to be here.
Happy to have you here. Where it costs money, but
Mike is
you know
on
what? All good things cost money. And I really look forward to putting together this plan that Bob has put the structure to and carrying out each and every one of the objectives here. It's going to be very important that we do it in an expedient manner in order to move us into a situation where we can balance the budget in due time. And of course, I know that the city manager and I have spoken about what we do in the event that we do have a shortfall, and he's come up with a few ideas, I think, that possibilities. We always have to, although we don't want to look at that, we don't want to go there, we don't want to be there, but we certainly have to put ourselves in a position where we know what to do if and when we ever get to that position. So that's going to be just equally as important as putting the budget together and getting the economic development in here quick enough in order to get the budget balanced. So thanks for your work on that. And the staff number, I think, is probably in order at this point. We'll see on what we need to do in order to execute this plan.
I have the MOU on the agenda for the May meeting, and we'll start looking for the individual.
The RFQ for the city attorney, what is your projected time in getting that together and being able to get it out so that we can do the interviews?
Last week was kind of a pick up all the balls and see which ones need to be handled first, not only with internally, but with the interim attorney. setting up a priority list. We've already had meetings with the interim attorney, with SID's counsel and other things, working through, making sure we're all on the same page and understand different items to how to move them forward. I would expect that, as I said, probably in the 60 to 90 day range, we will be going out. It's been like a week, 10 days or less. I have, again, it's not reinventing the wheel. They've had RFQs before. We've done RFQs before. We'll compile the two. But that's also the important thing of understanding what we really need to make sure is included in that RFQ so that we don't have a firm thinking we're going one direction and we're going the other. To make sure that there's a good match and that the firms that are responding understand the match that we're looking for. So we're in the process of dusting off former RFQs and retweaking them to make sure that they meet our needs. I would say within 60 days, we'll be on the street.
Great. Mr. Interim City Attorney, you have any comment?
I do not, but thank you again for welcoming me here. It's nice to get back out here and see what's going on. I appreciate it.
You like to drive?
You know, it's not terrible. I live in West Boca Raton.
Oh,
So, yeah, so, just came by at 441.
I'm glad you didn't have to drive that far. It's cheaper for us to do that.
But thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
I don't have anything else except thank you for your input. Thank you for your engagement. And let's just keep moving as fast as we can going forward.
okay, it's time for public comment.
Mayor, I received no previous public comment cards. However, we'll give the virtual audience a moment to raise their virtual hand. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. Please state your name and address. If you're on a telephone device, please press *6 to speak. If you wish to make a public comment, please raise your virtual hand or press *6 to speak. Mayor, I see no virtual hands.
Thank you. And with that, we can adjourn at 8:37. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, good. How you doing?
Hi, Todd.
Okay.
Do you have a card?
I'll see. I wouldn't, I don't know if I reloaded my cards.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.